Hey everyone. So let's talk research-based presentation. Um, it's a lot like a paper, but the difference here is that you need to put your content in kind of two different places. You want your slides to be uncluttered while still explaining and analyzing your sources, your argument, and your counter arguments. Let's take a look at what this might be. So first thing we're going to look at is just what you would see in PowerPoint. Now, in a lot of learning platforms, regular PowerPoint is going to be preferable, only because when we download it, we are going to be able to see all of the speaker notes. Well, you can do this in Google Slides. The big hang up there is you want to be able to send that with whoever has the link can view the slides. Because if you send it as a PDF, we're not going to be able to see the speaker notes unless you send it in notes view. So let's talk about just a few of those things. Up here, you can see view. And we're just going to select that. And you see here, normal, outline view, slide sorter, notes page. You'll see here that there's no note. But here, as we go through the rest of the presentation, I have all of these notes. So if you're going to print this to PDF, right, file, print, PDF, it's still not necessarily going to give me those notes. So you can print current slide, you can print all of those things. So if you're thinking that you're going to do something like that, you're going to need to upload those notes separately and say things like slide 1, this is what I'm going to say. Slide 2, this is what you would say. Slide 3. Okay? So it really is just easier to upload the work itself. Otherwise, I'm not going to get a full picture of what you would actually say when presenting this. So let's take a look at how this would be presented. We are going to start from the beginning, and I'm going to show you here how this would look if you were actually going to present this in an auditorium, in a classroom. And so right now we are looking at the presenter's view. So you'll see here, we've got our current slide. Up here, we have our next slide. And here you'll see no notes. That's because this is the title page. You don't necessarily need notes for the title of the page. It's, hi, how are you? I'm Jenny. So glad you could come to my talk on picking a fight. All right. But if we go here, now you're looking at the whole slide. Okay. And if I hit our handy dandy little button, now you're going to see that slide. So we're going to just bring this back over here to our presenter's view and talk about what goes on each of these slides. Now here, you'll see that we've got kind of our overview. So a lot of times when you are using a template, it's going to be called the agenda page. So if you use the agenda page, this is a really good place to put your thesis. You can put it as a sentence, you can put it as bullet points, as long as you're talking about your main argument, your claim, what the opposition kind of is, and the solution to the problem. So here, when creating an argument is hard because many people don't believe we can argue politely. However, if we remember that we're all just trying to solve the same problem, an argument doesn't have to be as scary. Okay, now maybe that's all we talk about on this slide. However, I wanted to use this also as an example to show you where and how the notes work. In presenter view, now if I'm standing at a podium, I'm going to be able to see this whole page, what my current slide is, what my next slide is, and what I plan to say. This takes the place of those itty bitty 3x5 cards that if you're reviewing them in the parking lot and a strong wind comes up and they blow away, now you don't have that problem. It's all right here in front of you. And you're not always doing this. Awkward. So you can see that I have got a pretty significant amount of information in these notes so that I don't forget what I want to say. Now, the next portion really is, oh, excuse me, your introduction. This introduction is, honestly, it's like any other research-based paper. You're going to explain what the issue is as you understand it, explain the position of your opposition, and explain what you believe the solution to the problem is. So to a certain extent, you're restating that thesis, but now you're putting it into bigger context. Okay, now these first couple of slides may not have a whole lot of extra notes with them because it's pretty simple and clear cut. As you can see, I've got really clear images and not a whole lot of text. I'm not trying to just cram as much text in there as humanly possible. Please don't do that. What's this, you might ask? This is a subtitle slide. And so a lot of people choose to use these to help break up their different sections. So let's say argument, counter argument, rebuttal, the end. And so you may use this or not. It's really just about the aesthetic. And so it's like, it's cute and all. Don't need it. Don't want it. Bye. You don't need it. Okay. Some people like to use it because it feels like, they're staying organized. And other people feel like it's just that one more thing that they have to think about. Who do you want to be? Now we're into the research. Yes, you can use quotes, you can paraphrase, all of those things, but on slides, it can be kind of difficult. So here we have an example of a quote. Running in the house is one of the leading causes of domestic accidents. This is a quote I made up with an author I made up because I'm not giving away answers. But it's quoted, it's been attributed, but it hasn't been analyzed. We haven't talked about it in this slide. And so now your notes are really the meat of what you're talking about. And so in these notes, now you can put in there that topic sentence, that evidence with attribution, that source, that quote. You can attribute it now. And then again, 2 to 3 sentences of analysis, transition, conclusion, because you still need to shake hands and wrap up kind of this idea before you go on to the next, which is all about organization. This really should be set up like any other classic argument, where you're going to want to line out 2 to 3 solid points, maybe start out with your strongest and move your way through. This is one argument. This is the second argument. You might want to flip over and touch on what your opposition's position is and talk about that. and then roll back to your third argument to refute it. You can even flip that. Start out with the weakest, build up, go to the counter argument, and end with your strongest argument. Some people choose to do it that way. So either way, this is about persuasion. You are saying, this is why this is good. This is why this is not as good. This is why my idea is better than the idea that this is not as good. So it's not informative. Now, the synthesis essay, that's informative. A research-based argument, again, picking a fight. Now, there's a couple of ways you can refute your opposition. You can use a regular slide as we've looked at so far, or you can even do something like pros and cons. Now, you can't just leave this as bullet points. It's like, this is why this is better, this is why it's not. It needs to be very, very clear as to which side you are on and that you are refuting the other. So if you do this as bullet points, it's like, this is what the opposition says, this is why my idea is better. This is what the opposition says, this is why my idea is better. Yeah, you might even want to set this up as cons, pros, so that it's really clear that way. There's a lot of ways that you may choose to do this. You know, have one slide just dedicated to your opposition so that on the next slide, you can refute those points. Again, there's a few ways you can do this. This is just one example, an example that you might not have thought of yourself. Call to action. Again, argument. That means you're trying to convince your audience to do something. So, in this conclusion, you are wrapping up those main points. And this includes your opposition. Okay? You're restating to a great extent that thesis and what those big ideas are. And then you're coming back around to the solution to the problem, what you ultimately want your audience to do. This is all still an academic voice. This is not, I want you to, please don't do that. This is about the issue, not you. So it's okay to have a bit more text on here. As you can see, this is some pretty significant text. I showed you another way that you can organize it. If you just want to put this in as paragraphs, put it in as paragraphs. Again, don't crowd the slide. Put in more of the discourse in your notes if you find yourself crowding that slide. We're excited. You have to have a minimum of 4 sources in this particular PowerPoint, but there's going to be times when you're looking at 8, 10, 15 sources, even in a presentation. That means you have to have at least 1, if not 2, works cited slides, because again, you don't want to be crowding your sources. You'll note that there's no hanging indent here. That's because in PowerPoints, even Google Slides, getting that hanging indent is really hard. Not impossible. It's just honestly more work than what it's worth. And it's not genre specific. So here you can do the block sources. It's still going to be alphabetized. Numbers, actual numbers, not the word numbers. Numbers come first. So it goes 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, based on the first letter of the source. And then end it. Thanks. And here's where you're going to follow a little bit of that MLA process where you put in your name, my name, the course information, and the date. That way, I know who exactly did this work. So down here, so way down here, we're going to just potentially maybe not. Sorry, I can't get there. Down there at the very bottom, you'll see a footer. It's got your surname and day, month, year, and then your page numbers. This is a good way to ensure that if anyone ever asked if you really did this work, you did this work. A lot of the new PowerPoint templates have this. And so put in your last name, put in the date, and let it do the page numbers for you. Let's just take a quick look at the screen. So here you'll see surname, day, month, year, page number. Now you might be wondering, how long is this supposed to be? Well, say what you need to say it well, and then stop. But because this is research-based, because you need to both integrate those sources and analyze those sources, you are going to need to plan on at least 8 to 10 slides. Odds are good you're going to need more than that. So don't skimp on the slides, because it's better to have them neat, clean, uncrowded, uncluttered, than to go, oh, I only need 8 to 10 slides, and try to cram all of that information into just that itty bitty living space. Now, friends, is there lots of other ways to do this? Lots of other ways to accomplish this with other sources? Yes, there are. But this is just to get you started and should help with a lot of the unanswered questions. Be well and right on.